In the last video, hey, what's up? It's time for another video. In this, I guess, episode, a little short, we'll be going through getting opencode installed and getting it set up so that you can use it to manage your Proxmox environment. As you can see, I have a pretty decently sized Proxmox environment with a couple dozen different VMs. And I use these VMs to learn and practice with. They're a great way for you to test out different ideas or different subjects as you learn them. It's one thing to read a book, but oftentimes I find you don't have true mastery or knowledge of a subject until you've practiced it. That's where you really get to know, do I understand what I think I understand? And sometimes the answer is yes, you do understand it, in which case, clap for yourself. Good job. But sometimes the answer is no, you're lying to yourself. You think you know. But it turns out you're like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. You know nothing. Nothing. And that's okay. If you think hard enough about it, you'll realize that knowing nothing is the natural state of being a human being. You're born into this world knowing nothing. And then over time, you acquire skills like a video game character. And then you grind those skills. And then from nothing, you now know something. And that something, in the case of this video, is learning how to install opencode. As you can see, I already have opencode spun up here. So ignore that. Ignore this whole virtual machine screen. Imagine there were no virtual machines and you were creating a brand new one. I like to run opencode in a container because it's not really a heavy service. It's actually a very well-written application. So what you want to do is right-click, create container, and you're going to assign it a container ID. Because this is for demonstration purposes, we'll just give it a random one. We'll call this 5001. We'll call this opencode demo. Obviously assign your password, then hit next. Choose wherever you got your template stored. In my case, I'm a big fan of Debian. Debian is very stable and I like my systems to not change. If it's a server that's going to be serving things, then I need it to be reliable. And then assign some storage. I find 64 gigs to be more than good enough, though you could probably get along with like 32 or 16. Opencode doesn't really take up that much resources. For cores, we're going to go with 8 cores, or this is going to be 8 threads, which comes out to 8 cores. And then we're just going to give this about a gig of RAM. You don't need that much RAM to run opencode. Then we're going to have it choose its IP from DHCP and assign it to our default bridge, which is bridge 0. Going to give us a DNS domain. We're going to call this test.local for our test domain. Then our DNS server, at least for now, it's just going to be Cloudflare. And we'll hit confirm. After that, while it spins up, you'll want to open up Google. You want to do a quick Google search for opencode. Then you want to click the first opencode website. And then you'll want to copy the opencode install command. By the time you do all that, your container should be ready to go. And then you can just start it to spin it up. You're going to have to wait a couple seconds for it to get an IP address. But once it does, this container will spin up. And then you literally just paste that command. Oh, I'll leave this in here. You might be missing curl depending on the Linux version. Depending on the Linux version you're running this on, you might actually be missing curl. In my case, Debian is missing curl, so I'm just going to do an apt-get install -y curl, and we'll wait. And we're missing packages, so we'll do a quick apt-get update fix mixing. And we'll let that complete. And then curl should work, and we'll let that complete. And then finally, we can go back up and run curl fssl, and then pipe that into bash. And that's basically a self-install script for opencode. And when it's done installing, it should just be done. From there, we can actually build out our opencode Proxmox skill. And I'll show you what you have to do to get Proxmox connected to opencode and how you can use that to manage servers and services in your home lab. We are back and opencode is now installed, and getting it spun up is as easy as typing in opencode. All right, looks like we're going to have to either restart bash or just reboot the container. Reboot will take a second or two, so we're going to go with that. The container has been rebooted. Let's go ahead and log back in. And then we should just be able to issue opencode. It'll drop us into the opencode harness. But you're not quite done yet. You have to choose a provider. In my case, we are going to go with OpenAI. In my case, we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for OpenRouter. After that, you're going to have to paste in your OpenRouter API key. I'll assume if you're watching this video, you kind of know what actually, that's a bad assumption. To get your API key from OpenRouter, what you do is you search for OpenRouter, or you go to openrouter AI, go ahead and log in as you would normally, go to settings. From settings, go to API keys, and then click create to create yourself a new API key. Give it a name, give it a credit limit. You can choose whether or not you want the API key. Well, you can choose whether or not you want your credit limit to expire, daily, weekly, monthly. And then you have an expiration for your API key. So you can see I got a couple of different API keys, and I've burned I've got a couple of different API keys, and I've burned a couple dollars. And I've done some big spending over here at OpenRouter, right? Up to $5 on a summarizer model to summarize some notes I was taking. I went ahead and pasted in my API key off screen. Can't have you knowing my secrets. They wouldn't be very secret, right? After you paste in your API key, you have access to a bunch of different models through OpenRouter. One of the reasons I like OpenRouter is because it gives you all these different models for you to mess around with to see which models are hype and which are not. Some models are hype. Some models live up to their reputation. Some models are not. You're like, oh, damn, I was misled. Right? And one of the things I like about OpenRouter is it gives you the ability to just kind of test out different models to see how they perform. There's been some new Quinn releases recently, so let's scroll through and let's search for Quinn. And look at that, Quinn 3.6 plus. I think this is a couple dollars per million tokens, so not exactly cheap, but a lot more affordable than Claude Opus. And let's shoot it a quick hello and see how it does. Cool. And that's it, boys. That is how you get opencode installed in Proxmox. A pretty simple walkthrough video. Stay tuned. I'm going to be doing some more videos. Hopefully, once I get the small CTL harness to a point where I feel a little bit more proud of it, I can do a walkthrough video of how to get it installed and running on a Linux server. That way the knowledge is just out there. I also want to clean up the install script a little bit. It's very bare bones right now. So more to come on that. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoy this content, hit the like button. If you want to see more, please go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, stay blessed, boys. I'll see y'all next video.